Welcome to Sisters Inc., our podcast for and about women business owners, brought to you by Black Enterprise. I'm your host, Elisa Gums. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America, and on every episode of Sisters Inc., we'll sit down with one successful CEO and share how she slays the challenges of being a Black woman in business. Today's episode is all about rebranding your business. We're chatting with Lesley Riley, the founder and CEO of Mama's Biscuits, a gourmet biscuit company whose sweet and savory creations are sold at stores nationwide. Welcome to Sisters Inc., Lesley, and thanks so much for sitting down with us.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the business, let's talk about your background. Where did your love for cooking and baking start?
Hmm. That, it started when I was probably, I want to say about third grade. I had an assignment to do, and my mom took me to the library, and we found a book that had recipes in it, and I made this dip for some kind of thing we had in school, and everybody loved it. And so then after that, I just started making the same dip. It was just very basic. I want to say it was just like mayo and ketchup and then some other stuff in it. But it was really good and everybody liked it. Everybody requested it. And I remember being, young when I did it. And so and then both of my grandparents, of course, we all have that history and that story of our grandparents, but one of my grandparents lived in the country and they had pigs, chickens, cows. They lived basically on a farm. And then my other grandmother lived in the city, but she had a fresh garden. So I got it from both of them. I was able to, get lessons and tools and tricks from both of them. So that's kind of where it started.
And what was your professional journey before you started Mama's Biscuits? Because you have like a long history with the food industry.
I do. I am a former restaurateur, so that's my backstory. I owned a very upscale restaurant back in the 2000s. I created it. Just looking back, like I even looked at the menu to this day, and I'm like, wow, some of this stuff is not even out there, and I'm actually surprised. So I did it like 20 years ago, 20 almost 30 years ago, and even some of the stuff that I created is still not out there yet. So I was like, maybe I should bring it back. But yeah, that's kind of where it started. I in high school and my teenage years, I worked at a restaurant. When I came home from college, during spring break, all my friends went, different areas in spring break, and I came home and worked. So, so it was just, yeah, like I was, I worked at the restaurant. I was a manager there. So summer breaks, I came home, I worked at the restaurant. So I kind of always been in that industry and just had a love for that.
The
But that's
restaurant in
the behind the scenes. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Yes, the restaurant industry is one where I think entrepreneurs tend to pick up a lot of lessons. Like, what would you say you learned about being an entrepreneur as a former restaurateur?
Ooh. So at the time I was married, so I remember like the work ethic it was just unbelievable. I remember one time like my ex-husband came in with the kids and somebody said, "Oh," or no, I had him at the time and somebody said, "Oh, you're babysitting." I was like, "No, it's my kids." Because I was always there. I was always at the restaurant. So it was just that was a constant grind, just trying to make sure that people were serviced because it was an upscale restaurant. We had a full service restaurant that seated 200 people, and then we also had there was another side to it where I designed like and had all the entertainment and I had live jazz while you dined in. On Sundays we had live gospel. And so there was like almost we were able to serve wine and beer in that area. So we had like live on the other side. So it was nice. I was able to create. It was just such a creative time for me, and I think that's what I loved about it.
And where did the inspiration come from for you to focus on biscuits?
Um, so back in 2013, well, 2014, I was always cooking. I was always cooking, and so like I would have get-togethers at my house all the time. So the get-togethers were friends and family would always come. I'd cook big meals. I would tell them, look, they were like, what can we bring? I was like, nothing, just come. Like, don't bring anything. I always got so upset when people brought stuff. I'm like, because I just wanted them to come and enjoy themselves. So I didn't want them to have to fuss with anything. Just come, enjoy yourself, eat, and have a good time. So I had events at my house all the time. Like I cooked like large meals, whether it was on the grill or whatever. And then everybody was encouraging me. We were over at a friend's house, the neighbors, and everybody was encouraging me to go on Master Chef. And I was like, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to do that. And finally I did. And, I went to New York, made it through a couple rounds, and then I was cut. And I was like, oh my goodness. But at the time I had some social media up, and they were kind of cheering me along the way. We kind of did some real time stuff. Back then they didn't have like live, but I had somebody just constantly updating the social media. So they were cheering me along the way. And even when I didn't make it, they were like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. So I kind of wanted to keep that going. And originally back in 2014, I dipped and dabbed in butters. So I had like gourmet compound butters. And then I was like, well, I need to put this butter on stuff. And so I had a love for biscuits, and I was just like, I saw that there wasn't anything really good or clean on the market. I was like, let me just go ahead and, pulled out grandma's recipe book. Anyway, I missed a step, and we were doing a photo shoot, and the biscuits came out like little hockey pucks. But I was like, I know how to make biscuits because restaurant we used to make sweet potato biscuits, so I always knew how to make them. But I was like, I was just trying grandma's recipe. And so yeah, there's a picture out there on the internet. You'll see me. I'm pulling out like biscuits out of the oven, and they're not mine, they're national brands. So, but we played around with that, and then sorry, then when we I was able to just start creating different flavors. Friend of mine planted like, hey, why don't you do some flavors? And I was like, you know what? There's not a whole. I did start doing research and realized there wasn't a whole lot of flavors on the market. So I said, let me start creating. And I told my coworkers at the time, I said, I'm going to do 50 different flavors before the end of the year, and that was in October. And
Oh,
so
wow.
imagine all, yeah, so by December I had over 50 different flavors. So, and the following year, 2015, I put up a website and said I'm going to be the Sherry Berries of biscuits, and started shipping them all over the country.
Yes. So, as you mentioned, you perfected your biscuit recipe in 2014. You launched your online store in 2015. And then in
That's correct.
2019, you decided to rebrand the business. How did you come to the conclusion that you were in need of a rebrand?
So 2019, I was meeting with some buyers, and some buyers were giving me suggestions and like the way I had my old packaging and stuff like that. And I realized it was hard to kind of get the biscuits out of the pans and stuff like that. And at the time, the business kind of it plummeted a little bit. Like I wasn't in stores, and it just, I mean, there was just a lot going on. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take this time and I'm going to rebrand the company. And that's when we put the biscuits in pouches. And I mean, it just took off. It was just completely different. We rebranded. We didn't rebrand the logo. We just rebranded the design and of the packaging. And it was a major, major milestone for us, and it just took off. We took it within 2 years. We took it to like a multi-million-dollar company.
Wow. As you were
Hmm.
getting that feedback from buyers and thinking about what the experience was like for your customers, how did you go about
Hmm.
making the new decisions for the brand? Did you enlist professional help? Did you try out a few different things?
I did. I had I don't like to call like the people on my social media like my followers or fans or anything like that. I always call them my community, my tribe. We actually call them the Vibe Tribe, and the Vibe Tribe is Vibe is very important biscuit eaters. So we call them the Vibe Tribe. so, so we call them the Vibe Tribe. And so I reached out to them. Like I was good at marketing. And so I just said, I remember talking to my team. And I had a team, I had an advisory team around that time that helped a lot as well. And I said to them, I said, hey, let's reach out to, our community on social media. And we did. And they gave us some really good feedback. It was hard to get them out the pans. I mean, it was just great feedback. And then we took that and and then taking some of the buyers' feedback, and then I was able to just kind of take it to my graphic designer and said, "Hey, let's do it like this," and we did.
As part of the brand, the rebrand, you also rewrote your brand story. Now, you've got some great elements to your story. You've had a passion for cooking and baking since you were young, you said. You had grandma's biscuit recipe, which I believe was
Mhm.
like over 100 years old, right?
That
How
recipe is
important?
old. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's amazing. How important has storytelling been for your business?
It's been very important. I think that's what captured like my community because it's it was they were able to stand behind it. They were able to trust the brand. And I think that's where, this wasn't just something that just popped up. I think it was years of just gaining that community that followed me and was able to trust me. And I think that was the success behind the brand because people they waited for years until they came on the market. Some people didn't want to pay the price, to have them shipped and stuff like that. And I get it. But as soon as they came out on the market, I mean, they were supporting like left and right. So I think it's very important that I kept telling the story. And of course my story, I rewrote the story. It changed as we went along, but I think the consistency and the transparency of what they heard from me, they didn't just hear my successes, like they heard my failures as well. So, and I think that's where you gain that trust. I think it's about gaining trust and, just having that brand that they trust and they can stand behind. And I think that was a lot of the success behind the brand.
When I think about crafting your story, as you said, you rewrote it. So many times I come across entrepreneurs who have a great story, but I can tell that they are not yet great at telling that story. They're not used
Right.
to telling that story. How did you become good at telling your story?
Well, when it's your story, it just comes natural. So I think a lot of times brands create stories. They add on and then they get twisted up in their stories. so so when it's your story and you lived it, it's easier to tell it. But when you're saying, hey, this may attract the customers, or this may attract the customers. I see it a lot. I see it a lot, and I'm like, and my backstory is I used to be an investigator. I used to be a national security background investigator for the government. So, I'm trained to listen to things. And so
Mm.
sometimes I'll say, well, that doesn't add up, so I know that they're not always being truthful with that story. So I think, yes, if you live the story, it's easy to tell.
As you mentioned, the business really took off after the rebrand. It generated a lot of attention from
It
national
did.
retailers.
Hmm.
You're now sold at Walmart, Target, Trader Joe's, Publix, Kroger, Wegmans, and more,
Yes.
which is so impressive.
Thank you.
Aside from the fact that the biscuits are delicious, what do you think it is about your brand that has attracted retailers?
Again, I think it's our innovation. We were able to take a simple biscuit, and I always say, God gave me something as simple as a biscuit, but we were able to take a simple biscuit and turn it into something major. There wasn't anything on the market. I mean, we had, excuse me, our national brands. And then we had, everybody knows our Cheddar Bay biscuit, but that was pretty much that was on the market. So when I was able to come and say, you know what, I'm gonna put this one on the market. I'm gonna put that one on the market. The it was the innovation behind it. I remember one of the buyers telling me, um, we're seeing because I'm in that set in the frozen um, uh, aisle, they're seeing people that they've never seen come to that area before, and they were coming to get the biscuits. So that was good. So let me tell you, buyers they have data that we just don't have. So they were able to see, and they could see that these people were coming back as repeat buyers. So I think that's what it was. It was the innovation behind what we were able and what we were able to bring to the market. It wasn't easy. There was challenges with innovation. There's always challenges with innovation, but we nailed it.
Having successfully rebranded your business, what advice would you give to other aspiring small business owners out there about how to craft their brand when they're first starting out?
I would just, share with them, just be patient. A lot of times people look for that 15 minutes of fame. Everybody wants to be Instagram famous, TikTok famous, whatever. I would just tell them, um, it's not about the amount of people who follow you. It's not about that blue check mark. It's about being authentic and being authentic to your brand because those people will come. Eventually, those people will end up coming, and they'll love the brand. But just staying true and authentic and grow slow. I don't think people realize that. They see Mama Biscuit now, and they saw the rebrand. Some of them saw the rebrand in 2019, and most of the people who are following me now have seen the rebrand. So the ones who followed me from 2014, they got to see me grow. And I grew slow. I didn't grow, it wasn't a fast growth. And I think that's what I think a lot of these brands out there now are just looking for the new best and fast, like, how I can, just grow my brand quickly. And you will grow it quickly, you can, but you're not going to keep it. So grow slow.
Mm. Girl, so that's great
Mhm.
advice. And similarly, for companies that might be a little bit further along, a lot of times, entrepreneurs start their companies because they have so much passion around them. And it's very difficult as they're growing for them to, admit that something's not working or
Mhm.
that they need to pivot. So, what advice would you give for small business owners about evolving their brand as they grow?
I would tell them to put together that advisory board. It could be friends, family. I mean, they could even gain, they could pull from their community online, one or two people, and have that meeting and get that feedback. Get that feedback from people who have a different lens that are looking at it from a different angle. Because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're so close to it that we can't see what's going on. So unless we stop and take a step back, and that's what I did. Like I literally stopped. People didn't even know that biscuits weren't selling in 2019. They didn't know that. I stopped, took a step back, and looked at the whole picture. So that's what I would. That's the advice I would give them. Like just pull in like an advisory team, and then get that feedback. And when you get that feedback, don't take it to heart. Um, don't feel like it's a personal attack because those are the people, those are the consumers, those are the people that are buying your product.
Yeah. You mentor other entrepreneurs through the Mama's Biscuits Culinary Incubator at Hagerstown Community College. So while we have you sharing advice, I'm going to ask for a little bit more. What is the most common challenge you hear from startups in the food industry, and what tips do you give them?
It's capital. It's capital, 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 capital. It's always capital. It's always access to capital, gaining capital. It's money. So I tell them, so a lot of people work for me because I worked early hours, late hours. A lot of people don't have that time to do that. They have small children, they have this, and so they put their dreams sometimes on hold because they don't have the access to capital or life events take place. Um, I would still tell them, just keep going, but go slow. And if you go slow, you'll get you'll gain that access to capital. There's a young lady I'm mentoring now, and they're going into quite a few stores, and I'm saying, they're brand new, and I'm saying, it's okay to take a step back and reduce your stores. It's okay to do that because you don't have the capital, you know, or you don't know what's going to pop up when you're in all these stores. So I'm trying to coach them through grow slow, grow organically. Um, you know, that's kind of what I would share with them. Like, just, yeah, go slow.
And it's such a good point because, everyone who has a product wants to be in stores. I mean,
Yes,
Walmart is the biggest store
yes.
there is.
They
It
don't,
takes a
they
lot of
don't. And I
money to
even
get
remember
on
asking her, I was like,
store
well, what are the
shelves, and,
payment
and people
terms?
don't realize
And
that.
she was like 90 days. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you're going to be cash flow strapped. Like, they don't look at certain things, and I want them to win, and I don't want them to make the same mistakes that I did. So that was the cause of my business plummeting. So that's why I'm there to help them through this. I don't want them to make the same mistakes. Understanding the terminology, understanding what a coop is, understanding, just different things, like they don't understand, spoilage, this, that, the other, with chargebacks. I mean, those are huge. So, I want them to understand it all before they, go out there on a larger level. If you grow small, do small stores locally, it gives you the opportunity to um, figure out how to deliver your product. Work with the buyer locally, whether even if it's the store owner, because they have a lot of smaller stores, and the store owner is usually the buyer, and they work with you, and that's where I want most of the people to start, because it gives them the opportunity to learn the business, and then they grow from there.
Thank you so much, Lesley, for sharing your small business success story. Everyone out there, please take a look at the company website, mamabiscuit.com. And don't blame me if you feel compelled to order
Thank you.
something. I'm telling you right now, those biscuits look good. You can also follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Mama's
Thank
Biscuit,
you.
or on Twitter at Mamas_biscuit. Check out the podcast channel on blackenterprise.com to find Sisters Inc. and other podcasts from Black Enterprise editors, writers, and experts. Be sure to subscribe to Sisters Inc. on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or YouTube. And if you like what you hear, show us some love by leaving a 5-star review, or put a sister on by spreading the word. I'm Melissa Gums with Sisters Inc. for Black Enterprise. Thank you for listening.